Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today we're back with the first post-launch Outriders video. I've been grinding away these past few days at the story and leveling up, and now I've reached the endgame and, experienced what it has to offer, and I've been having a whole lot of fun. So today, I want to try and answer the question that I think a lot of people are asking right now, which is, is the endgame of Outriders worth it? Is it worth going through the story and the other stuff that comes before that in the game? Is it worth investing your time into and buying the product just to spend that time at the endgame? So there may be some minor story spoilers coming up, but there's nothing major. I will not be giving away any, hugely major plot points or anything. So with that said, let's just get into it. So the footage you are seeing in the background now is the primary endgame activity that Outriders launch has to offer, which is expeditions. And I'll say right off the bat, I really like the narrative and gameplay transition from the campaign to the endgame. Without spoiling too much, the end of the story, you see a bunch of drop pod supplies entering the atmosphere of the planet Enoch, which is where the story takes place. And so these pods are the goal of every expedition. Each one has a pod at the end, and your whole goal is to try and go and claim them, and then those give you, not only do they give you plentiful rewards, like you can get up to, 10 epics and legendaries total. I'm not saying they're all going to be legendaries, but, you can get a whole lot, especially on those higher challenge tiers, which we will get into. Those give you a whole lot of rewards themselves, but you also gain a brand new currency, which applies to an endgame only vendor at this camp that you unlock once you finish the story. Kind of your base of operations, if you will, if you know Div, that's a term there. But for the endgame, you get a whole separate camp, and that's where you can access that vendor and use these drop pod supplies, which you get from the expeditions, to buy legendaries, not only weapons, but also armor and other epics and all of that stuff. So it's great. But let's circle back and talk about what are expeditions themselves. Well, there are 15 replayable endgame missions. And the great thing is these are all in entirely new areas. They don't reuse any of the stuff from the story to make these expedition areas. They're entirely new, entirely their own thing, and they are highly replayable. The game mode has its own challenge tier system that allows you to increase the difficulty for better rewards. So it's pretty similar to world tiers in the open world, except as it is exclusive for this expedition content, and that's because it sets a more competitive cutoff time for each of these expeditions. So we'll see in the one I'm playing, in the top left corner under the map, you can see there's a bar there that's filling up with the amount of time it's taken for us to clear this mission so far. And if we hit that first cutoff time, or if we finish before that bar fills to the first notch, then we get the highest tier of rewards. But the higher up you go in challenge tiers, it becomes not only more difficult, but that time shortens, and then you have to try and complete it then to get the best rewards. Because if, say we were to finish this one in the second tier, then our rewards would be less than if it was in the first, and so on and so on. You get the idea. And by the way, the one in the background is only challenge tier 3 out of 15, so they're going to get much harder. This is just the first one we went into after finishing the story, so there's certainly, a lot more progression, both for ourselves and for the enemies, and the difficulty of this mode. But in and of themselves, I think these expedition game modes are great. Like I said earlier, they're basically an extension of the game we already know, but now in an endgame context. And it's not so much a linear story progression as much as now you can go and actually replay these. You can do that for the rest of the game too, but this feels like you have a specific purpose for wanting to replay them, and they are pretty replayable because they're less story focused and more just, killing, doing the stuff, going through, and they're really nicely designed areas. So I think that's all great. They don't fundamentally change much from what you already have experienced in the game. There's still not a whole lot of mechanics, which you could see as a downside if you're really hoping or expecting those. The one we did, you'll see in the middle portion, it had one plate mechanic where it was basically my squad and I had to stand in the radius of this blue kind of fire circle that was in the center of the arena, and if we left that, or if enemies started getting in, it would turn red, and that would stop the progress of this next door opening. So there was a slight mechanic there, but I don't think any of these are going to have something so intricate that you're like, wow, this rivals some of the best other stuff in the genre. It's nothing like that, but there is a bit of a challenge to it beyond just killing the enemies. But like I said before, for what this game is, I think they're great. You get a random selection of a few of them each time you visit the station, and they're a great thing to run through solo or with friends. And basically the whole goal is you're building up, like I said, there's 15 of them. You're building up through these first 14, and you're acquiring some of that drop pod resources to then unlock and purchase the final expedition, which is called the Eye of the Storm, which is definitely going to be a greater challenge than the first 14 that have come before. So there's even a renewed sense of progression beyond just your character in this new expedition system, which is nice, and it's a nice, again, continuation of what you've already come to know from the story portion of this game. So overall, for a non-live service game that focuses mostly on story, at least in the 1 to 30 experience, I think this is a great starting endgame. If DLC wants to, if they want to come in and add DLC that adds more to the endgame, then great. But like I said, for a game that promised a complete experience at launch, the expeditions and the endgame offered in here really offer a narrative continuation, a continuation of the progression and build ceilings, and more intense action arenas to play and test those builds in, which is kind of the whole point of this game beyond the story. So for my final statement, I'll say this. For what the game is, I think the endgame is great. If you're expecting something to rival other live service looter shooters, then you're probably setting yourself up for disappointment. But coming from someone who wasn't all that sold from initially playing the demo, I now find myself wanting to go back in and improve my build and progress through these expeditions. And for a game with no PvP, that means they've got to be doing something right. So take of that what you will. But I think that's going to do it, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you can be updated every time I upload. Leave your thoughts on Outriders thus far in the comments below. Have you beat the story? Ventured into the endgame? What are your thoughts on the game so far? Let me know all of that, plus what kind of other Outriders videos you all want to see on the channel. I have a few more coming up that I've planned out, but if there's anything specific you want to know about, leave it down below and I'll see what I can do. Thanks again, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day, and until the next one, guys, RogueGold out.